Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Calm Baby Method, Solutions for Fussy Days and Sleepless Nights, First Edition. By Patti Ideran, OTR, L, and Mark Fishbein, MD, FAAP. Narrated by Simmons. Publisher's Note: in this audio edition, you will hear references to figures and resources present in the print and e-book formats of the book. Forward. Andrea Childers, RN, BSN, CPN. As a pediatric nurse and mother of 2 teens and another tween, I understand that parenting is hard. The saying/adage, "The days are long, but the years are short," sticks out best to me in describing parenting. That quote has no meaning for parents with a colicky baby, though. Their days can't be so simply described as long. Colicky babies can make the days seem unbearable. Parents want and need to know if it is possible to help make their challenges better. 6 years ago, I came to know and work with Mark Fishbein, MD, FAAP, in his pediatric gastroenterology clinic. Many a day, Dr. Fishbein would come out of his initial assessment of a refluxing baby, calling out, "We need Patti." Patti Ideran, OTR, L, CEIM, has so much experience and insight on how to help babies experiencing challenges that Dr. Fishbein would not want the family to leave until Patti could assure him they could be seen soon, as in very soon. He wanted to help the stressed baby and parents so that their medical concerns could then be properly assessed and help the parents learn how to calm and soothe their baby so that the fussiness might decrease. On those miracle days that Patti had no other patient conflict, she could come right in to meet the parents, and she would teach them how to better understand and respond to their babies. Parents would leave with a calmer baby and knowledge of what to do to help the next time their baby was colicky. One such afternoon, a mother came to see Dr. Fishbein with her 3-month-old son for an evaluation for reflux. Her baby was crying with no tears, wide-eyed and thrashing his head. With frustration in her voice, the mother explained she was there because, "My baby has reflux so bad he never stops screaming." This was what we deemed a "we need Patti" moment. Thankfully, that day, Patti was available to come. After an hour, I went to clean the room, presuming the mother had left after her appointment. She was still there, holding her quiet, cooing son. Her frustration was gone, but she wasn't convinced he would stay calm. She and I reviewed the medical recommendations from Dr. Fishbein, as well as the calming strategies that Patti had given her. She was now able to head home, equipped with resources and a community of people who wanted to help. A few days later, I called her to check on them and heard a calm mother through the phone who wanted us to know that they were doing better. Patti, along with Dr. Fishbein and the other pediatric specialists who worked on this book, share what they have learned caring for babies and parents dealing with what is known as colic. We all hope to help make it better, because even though the medical books say colic may only last for a short time, each minute less makes those long hours a little shorter and happier for everyone. Introduction. Patti Ideran, OTR, L, CEIM. Having a baby is a thrilling experience. Having a fussy or high-need baby, well, it can be a challenge. Ask any parent who has ever had a fussy baby what it's like, and we all remember vividly, no matter how long ago it was. My first baby was an angel. He ate well, slept well, was always happy and content, and fussed only a little when he was hungry. I was tired, but I thought, this is easy. I never questioned my parenting skills on my first baby. It is very rewarding as a mom to be able to calm your baby, but extremely discouraging when you cannot. This is the Fussy baby, my second baby. I second-guessed myself all the time on my fussy/high-need baby. The questions were non-stop. What could be wrong with my baby? What was I doing wrong? How could I emotionally deal with a fussy baby? And would I ever get a good night's sleep again? I often felt lost on how to parent this beautiful but fussy baby. I felt inadequate to help him through his irritability. I did get through it, with the support of my great husband and family. And my fussy baby did grow out of it, and was a fabulous toddler. That experience led me to devote my time and energy to understanding and addressing these types of babies. I first started helping friends and my clients to understand their fussy or irritable babies. This was also when I met Mark Fishbein, MD, FAAP, pediatric gastroenterologist, my mentor, and the driving force behind writing this book. We had many discussions about babies with colic and how we could help them and their parents. He would evaluate the medical causes, and I would work on the behavioral piece. And it worked. During this period, 91% of our referrals for infant colic showed almost immediate improvement in either fussiness, sleeping, or feeding. In today's climate of TMI, too much information, it can feel overwhelming when you try to look online and learn about your fussy baby. There are many mommy blogs or social media posts and messages with inaccurate, unreliable, or even harmful advice. You probably also receive all sorts of loving tips from well-meaning grandparents, friends, or sisters. But if they have not parented a fussy baby themselves, they can't truly understand what you are going through. You've probably also made many calls and visits to your pediatrician's office, and your doctor suggests a variety of solutions, although none of them seem to work, and often you don't feel heard. Then all this advice starts to conflict and contradict. It's overwhelming. Babies may be labeled as being colicky or high need, or sensitive or unsettled, or immature, or fussy. They really all mean the same thing. You will hear that they will grow out of it at about 3 or 4 months. But you need help now with your baby's fussy days and sleepless nights. That is why we wrote this book. We wrote it to introduce you to the calm baby method, cues, arousal levels, and massage. In the following chapters, you learn about cues. Because babies can't tell you how they feel, they communicate with you through their behaviors, or cues. They tell you, I'm tired, or I'm hungry. It is important to understand that fussy babies often do not give clear cues, which can make it difficult to know what they want. Learning to read your baby's cues helps to decrease your stress and improve your confidence in yourself as a parent. Arousal levels, or behavioral states of arousal. This describes how alert or how sleepy your baby is at different times, and you learn how this affects how you care for your baby. You learn to recognize specific, predictable, or sometimes unpredictable, states of alertness in your baby. Massage. This book incorporates the importance of human touch and massage. Babies of this generation are sometimes called container babies. They are in bouncy seats, swings, or carriers, and are being held and touched much less than maybe you were as a baby. Too much use of this equipment has contributed to mild developmental delays, flat heads, and less bonding between baby and parent. In this book, We talk about the importance of getting your baby out of these pieces of equipment and give you positioning suggestions, which also helps with your baby's motor development. Other topics in this book include: what is colic? We help you understand what colic is and tease out the symptoms that could be related to medical issues. For instance, gastrointestinal issues, feeding problems, immaturity, or behavioral issues. For instance, state regulation, poor sleep, a tendency toward overstimulation. Your baby's sensory world. Our philosophy about fussy babies is that they are often overstimulated by the outside world, and that can be exhausting. Overstimulation affects your baby's entire personality. In a later chapter, you will learn about what your baby experiences through her senses, her crying behaviors, and how her sleep, or lack of sleep, affects her behavior. Attachment. The content on attachment teaches you what attachment is and how it can be difficult with a fussy or high-need baby. You will be provided information on infant attachment, why it is important, how attachments develop, and how they are maintained. Sleep. In this book, we address the importance of sleep, safe sleep practices, and typical sleep patterns in babies, as well as the challenges fussy babies have with sleep. We also detail sleep training and creating a conducive sleep environment to help your baby and you receive some well-needed sleep. Feeding and nutrition. This content covers what typical feeding is and what to do when there are problems. You will also learn about all the different nutritional interventions on the market these days for fussy babies and the research behind them. Baby blues. Postpartum depression can be made worse when you have a fussy baby. We give you information on this important issue and talk about how it can affect the whole family. Beyond colic. What if your baby is still colicky after the typical age? We help you understand some of your baby's unique issues and where to go for help. We have helped thousands of parents just like you with babies like your own. We wrote this book to help you and your fussy baby. My former fussy baby is now a wonderfully successful, happy young adult. He likes to take credit for my career path. And he's right. Thanks, Greg. The Calm Baby Method, Solutions for Fussy Days and Sleepless Nights, helps you become an expert at understanding your baby and can give you a calmer, happier baby. And then you will be calmer, happier, and ready to adore your little bundle of joy. Chapter 1. What is colic? What is colic? That is the million-dollar question. If you are hearing about colic, maybe you have a fussy baby, or a fussy grandbaby, or a friend who is dealing with a fussy baby. You may even just be an expecting parent wanting to learn more about babies. The content in this chapter gives you the most recent updated information on colic and common symptoms that may indicate a baby is experiencing colic. Colic is not really an actual disease or diagnosis. The discomfort, the crying, and the fussiness are a collection of symptoms that occur together in a pattern. Sometimes doctors and nurses don't even like to say the word colic because they know the word is dreaded by parents. They know parents have read all the baby books and have hoped and prayed their baby wouldn't have it. Instead of saying colic, doctors may choose alternate words to describe your baby. They may say you have a high-need baby, a sensitive baby, an unsettled baby, a baby who cries excessively for no apparent reason, an inconsolable baby, an irritable baby, a baby who is just on the immature side, or a baby with a difficult temperament. That is what I, Patti, was told back when my son was a baby. When I asked, "How is this different than colic?" they said it wasn't. Bottom line, colic is merely a label that covers the range of symptoms and possible causes. And for you, as a parent, that word tells you there will be some challenging times ahead. Colic is very overwhelming to families. It may cause strained relationships between parents, between baby and parents, even between parents and their parents. Inconsistent and sometimes unpredictable crying is a hallmark of colic, and this crying affects many things. It can disrupt lives, feed into social isolation, and make parents desperately search for a medical diagnosis. It can also make postpartum depression worse. Hear more about the postpartum family in Chapter 13. It is the primary reason for phone calls to the pediatrician during a baby's first 6 months. Because there is not a proven treatment, parents can often be frustrated with no solid answer as to why their baby is crying so much. Sound familiar? Here are some common concerns about fussy babies parents share with pediatricians. She's super sensitive. I can't put him down. This baby is draining. She's unpredictable and unsatisfied. He doesn't like to cuddle, which breaks my heart. He is intense. She seems hyperactive. She wants to nurse all the time. My baby is demanding. She awakens frequently and doesn't seem to be well rested. What is colic? The definition is vague and varied. The classic definition of colic, around since the 1950s, is the sudden onset of high-pitched crying without a medical reason in an otherwise healthy, well-fed baby that happens for 3 hours per day, for more than 3 days per week, for more than 3 weeks. The rule of threes. So that means your baby will have colic for at least 3 weeks before your pediatrician will even call it colic. Current information from the scientific literature in medicine and psychology has resulted in additions to that definition over the years, which may now include crying 3 hours per day for 3 or more days per week for 1 week, versus 3 weeks in the original definition. Not calming when picked up. Attempts at soothing them often result in babies stiffening or arching the body with no settling. The usual soothing strategies, such as holding, rocking, or listening to mother's voice, are not effective. A disturbance in the sleep-wake cycle, they often have very short sleep phases during the day. They are frequently called catnappers. Difficulties getting to sleep and staying asleep. It takes a long time to finally settle them to sleep, and then they wake, and you have to try again. They often sleep fewer hours than typical babies per day. Difficulties falling and staying in deep sleep. Parents have described them as restless sleepers. Parents need to keep the house very quiet because any little noise wakes them. Fussy babies often wake more frequently than typical babies. Difficulty self-regulating their states of arousal, that is, deep sleep, light sleep, quiet alert, active alert, fussing, crying. These babies do not move through all levels easily, or they stay primarily in one. Crying. Crying episodes such as intense crying, quickly escalating from 0 to 60 in no time, non-specific crying, or feeding-related crying. Unable to feed properly, although they don't usually have difficulty gaining weight. They are on and off the nipple during a feeding, distracted easily during feeding, and sometimes feed too often. Overly alert. They are often called hyperalert or wide-eyed and are said to have a hunger for stimulation. Parents often equate this to not needing sleep. However, these babies are usually overtired and need sleep, but look hyper-alert. Difficulty regulating responses to everyday stimuli. They overreact to stimuli such as a dog barking, a door slamming, being moved, or having a diaper change, and often have difficulty recovering from these stimuli. Did you know? Certified lactation consultants are specialists in breastfeeding who can help mothers learn how to successfully breastfeed their babies. Sometimes the fussiness babies exhibit may not be colic, but may stem from problems with breastfeeding. These issues include milk supply, low or overabundant supply, overactive letdown reflex, or improper latch. If you are having difficulties with breastfeeding, make an appointment with a lactation consultant through your local hospital. Colic characteristics. How common is colic? It occurs in anywhere from 10% to 40% of babies. It is equally distributed across races and socioeconomic statuses and between boys and girls. Whether you breastfeed or bottle feed does not seem to increase or decrease the chances of your baby having colic. There is no grading of colic, such as mild, moderate, or severe. However, it is clear that colic is not caused by a disease or anything a parent has done. This is very important for parents to understand. Colic can occur in spite of excellent parenting. The classic colic curve starts at about 1 to 2 weeks of age, peaks at 6 to 8 weeks of age, and drops off by 14 to 16 weeks of age. Often, most of the crying happens in the early evening, but some babies cry all day long, or it seems like it. Sometimes the intensity of the crying is stronger in the early evening. Not all fussy babies show all characteristics or symptoms, but most do show several of them. Typical babies may show some of these symptoms. However, it is the intensity and duration that separates a typical baby from a colicky baby. Crying in a colicky baby is more persistent and severe than in typical babies. A true diagnosis of colic is not only a cry complaint, but includes some of the other symptoms listed previously. When do the symptoms lead to diagnosing colic? It is diagnosed when the symptoms cause impairment or dysfunction with the baby. For example, poor feeding, poor sleep, increased irritability, or distress in the family. For example, attachment, parental stress, relationship difficulties between the parents, postpartum depression. A classic consequence of colic is that parents often revert to dysfunctional strategies, understandably, because nothing has worked. They hold their baby, stroll with them, drive them around at all hours, and feed them non-stop. Excessive crying is one of the most common problems in the first year after birth, and probably the least understood. We know that colic does end, but you may be told it is not harmful to your baby, it is trivial, and they will grow out of it. Explanations that colic is harmless or trivial are not helpful to overstressed parents whose lives revolve around caring for their fussy baby around the clock. Colic is a huge challenge for parents. Empathy from anyone, including healthcare professionals, doesn't offer the structured, concrete strategies needed, such as the ones discussed in this book. Research has shown that colic causes tremendous distress in the baby-mother relationship and should not be overlooked. There is an increased cost to the healthcare system as parents search for explanations and answers for their baby's crying. There may be multiple visits, or phone calls, to their doctor, and even trips to the emergency department for excessive crying, only to be discharged with no explanation. In the scientific literature from the medical and psychological worlds, there are generally 4 different viewpoints on the possible causes of colic. What is known is that there is not a consensus on what colic is. These viewpoints include the following areas. 1. A gastrointestinal issue, or stomach or intestinal explanation, such as gas, acid reflux, tummy pain, esophagitis, low-grade systemic inflammation, or swallowing air during crying, aerophagia. 2. An immature nervous system, causing overreaction to stimuli, disorganized responses, unpredictable cues, feeding difficulties, or poor sleep patterns. 3. Possible allergies or intolerance to cow's milk protein in the diet of breastfeeding mothers. 4. Some theorists even describe parenting behavior as an explanation. However, as previously explained, it is clear that colic is not caused by anything a parent has done. Healthcare professionals sometimes attribute colic to first-time, inexperienced, or anxious parents. However, research disputes this. On rare occasions, colic can occur in homes with environmental tension, neglect, or mental health issues with family members. Other, less obvious explanations in pediatric literature linked to colic are maternal smoking while pregnant, low birth weight, restlessness of the baby, or mother's distress during pregnancy. These explanations vary widely. Some babies who are diagnosed with colic have none of these issues, and some babies with colic may have more than one. Bottom line is that we want babies who have colic to be identified so that we can eliminate the risks and consequences of colic and provide supportive treatment to families. What we don't want to happen is for these babies to be labeled as difficult early in their lives, as this leads to parental helplessness and may lead to parents feeling their baby will always be difficult. We need to listen to parents and give them support, guidance, and assistance. Is colic more prevalent in other countries? Several years ago, there was a review of studies that looked at the incidence of colic in 8 countries: United States, Denmark, Germany, Japan, Canada, United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Italy. The most consistent finding was a lower fuss or cry duration in Denmark, with the Netherlands and Canada having significantly higher fuss or cry duration. Researchers could only speculate on the reasons why, such as economic conditions, caregiving patterns, baby wearing or carrying, less equipment, and feeding style. These studies should be interpreted cautiously, as many variables were not measured and many countries were not included. But studies such as these may help us eventually understand colic more. This doesn't mean if you move to Denmark, your baby won't have colic. Did you know? There was a large study out of Denmark that looked at the risk of colic in preterm babies and babies that were considered small for gestational age. This is when a baby is born term, but is smaller than most babies that are born term and are usually under the 10th percentile. The study found that these preterm and small babies were at increased risk of developing colic. They found there was a 30% chance of these babies developing colic if they were born before 37 weeks of gestation. They also found that the risk increased the earlier they were born, with the highest odds when babies were born at 32 weeks of gestation. If you have a preterm baby or a baby who is small for gestational age, and your baby also has colic, Consider an evaluation by an occupational therapist who is experienced in working with preterm babies and fussy babies.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?